I'm from Michigan, and my fiance Krista as well. We are both realtors. I am licensed in Michigan, and she's licensed in Florida, and I do flips here in Tampa.
I'm his fiance. I've been in real estate for 6 years now. He's done it for 7. Started in Michigan, moved to Florida, so now we're trying to tackle both markets. So yeah, we're excited to show you guys this project.
Now, Nick has been flipping for almost a decade, right? But a few deals here and there. But now they're both in the stage in their business where they're ready to scale. So last year they did 6 projects, right?
Yeah, 6 in Tampa and 2 in Michigan.
6 in Tampa, 2 in Michigan. The goal for this year is 12 projects, and who knows where they take it from there. But what's beautiful about that is that you'll still see there's so much to learn even when you're 6 projects in. And as they're looking at 12 projects down the road, they're still eager to learn, join groups like this, and soak up the knowledge.
And I think the cool thing about the stage that they're at is that a lot of people don't make it to this stage, right? So your first few deals are typically very stressful because you don't know what you don't know and you're learning as you go, and it's overwhelming, and you don't always make money, and sometimes you lose money. And so a lot of flippers will get through 1 or 2 or 3 projects, and then rather than learning and seeing, hey, I made these mistakes, I'm not going to make them again, here's how I need to transition this certain thing, or here's the system that I need to put in place, they kind of just say, well, this isn't for me, right? And so for Nick and Krista, like, I applaud you guys for being in the throes of learning all of the lessons, right? All those scars are fresh. And instead of saying, hey, we're going to throw in the towel, they're going to say, hey, we're going to get better. We're going to do more. We're going to make more money, right? We're going to turn it into a business. So I think there's going to be a lot to learn from them.
So the way we acquired this property and came across the deal was actually a wholesaler that we've used probably about 4 times. I guess that's one of the learning experiences I'll share with everybody.
Yeah.
We had done a couple deals with him already, so we knew what we were looking for. And he sent me this one actually while I was back in Michigan. Said, I'm going to share the good and the bad with this project. And kind of starts off a little on the bad. He offered it to us at $290. And instead of, really doing as much due diligence or negotiating as I should have, we ended up accepting it sight unseen. We came in at 67% of the ARV. It was a little high. We did do it sight unseen.
And so what Nick is saying is, hey, I feel like I maybe overbought on the property a little bit. I paid 67% of what I'm forecasting as the ARV, or in this case, really what it's under contract for. But I paid 67% of that amount, and it seems like you probably would have felt a little more comfortable if you were less, maybe 5%, 10%.
Yeah, and it doesn't help to find out, that the wholesaler got it for $245.
Hey, wholesalers are a vital part of the ecosystem, right? So we don't ever want to knock wholesalers. They do a great service to the whole industry. But when it comes to your own business, I think the idea is make sure that we are being prudent with our offers, and we're making offers that fit our own buy box to make sure that you can have a successful deal. So it's a learning lesson, right? Yeah. On the next one?
We're still learning.
That's right. So to summarize, we got this one from a wholesaler. Yep. We bought it sight unseen.
Yeah.
It looked beautiful in the pictures.
Not quite beautiful in the pictures.
Okay, all right, cool.
But yeah, it looked like less work than it ended up being. The financials for this project was, like I mentioned earlier, $290,000 for the purchase price. That was already including the wholesaler's fees and everything. Sure. We did use hard money on this loan, so there is origination fees, appraisals, generally some underwriting fees. That's what you'll see under the financing costs. And under the projected cost of sale, that's realtor commissions, title costs, government fees, all of that.
Okay.
Originally, our rehab budget was around $50,000 on this. It was around $50,000 because it didn't look like it was too bad. But when we actually got into this, part of the reason for this amazing deck here is we realized all the joists, everything was rotten down to the studs, the joists, the pillars, everything, and the back deck. So there was a lot of unforeseen costs, like we had to, completely re-engineer the deck. I also wanted to keep the amazing 100-year-old siding, so instead of just covering it with a cheaper vinyl, we ended up scraping, sealing, caulking, repainting, which kind of blew up our $5,000 painting budget to about $18,000.
Right. Sure.
So the outside was definitely the most major expense.
One of the things that you can get away with in the Heights is having original flooring, and that can actually be a huge selling feature. So that's actually something that people like. They think it's charming, right? Understanding your market can save you right? From over improving something that you don't need to do. What is the expectation that the buyer is going to have for this property? I know you guys redid all of the windows, which bravo to you. But a lot of times in the Heights, people expect that they're going to have old windows in these houses. Kind of understanding what is the specific market that you're in and what are those buyer expectations is going to keep you from overspending. It's also going to keep you from making mistakes and not investing in the right things.
Sure. So we started out with a $50,000 budget. We went over because we splurged in some areas, or we just felt like there were areas of the property that we had to restore for us to really create the value. So the issue is, if we didn't go over budget, right, on this particular property, and we didn't restore some of these areas and spend the money on the deck, we might not have secured the 430 price, right? So by not going above and beyond budget, you potentially could have lost money on the deal, right? So there's typically a point in the project where you're making some sort of a trade-off, whether it's you're deciding to invest more or you're deciding to reduce scope in some area of the project because you need to be cognizant of your value. So I don't think the overspending is something to be ashamed about, right? You created an amazing product and you probably really secured the $30,000 in profit, which, mind you, is a profit, $30,000 in profit in 3 months. So still a really good return for a quick turnaround deal.
We learned about the window thing from your first meetup. Honestly, we had no idea. We figured that the old windows needed to be replaced, but honestly, that's something that we took away from that last meeting.
Yeah.
Of course, after we'd already replaced the windows.
Yeah.
Well, now it's a great selling
It's a selling feature for sure.
Yeah.
We identified the floor as a potential, so we didn't have them start with the floors. And then when we got to the end, of course, we're like, all right, everything on the potential list is staying as is.
So when you're doing repairs to things, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Had they just said like, oh, here are the window sizes and went to Lowe's, they would have paid a lot more money for custom windows. So it was probably much cheaper to kind of frame them in, go with standard size windows. Absolutely. So anytime you have, especially like an extraordinary expense, try to think creatively about how to problem solve for that, because there may be a cheaper solution than doing like custom everything, right?
Yeah, and as you'll notice, we tried to keep as much of the original trim as possible, but a lot of this is new. Like this door is original, but we tried to match it.
Sure.
That is new because when we peeled that off and changed the sizes, they were either damaged and we couldn't reuse them, or they just didn't fit the window new size anymore. So we tried to match the Craftsman style. I use pretty much hard money for every deal, partially because I don't have the capital to do everything in cash, and then we also are generally running 2 or 3 projects at a time. I didn't use Johnny on this one. We're doing a deal together on the next one.
There you go.
But
I like it.
The terms are pretty similar. So a lot of these hard money lenders will do 90% on the actual purchase, and then they'll fund the rehab 100%.
Okay.
Maybe Johnny could explain better, but somehow it ends up always being 15% loan to cost,
Yes.
and that's what this one ended up being.
Okay.
So generally 15% is what we expect for the down payment if you total the renovation budget and the purchase price together.
Depending on the type of investor you are, some lenders, us included, will say, hey, we'll give you 90% of the total cost, the purchase and the rehab together. And sometimes investors will hear 90% and they go, oh, cool, 10% down.
Yeah.
But on what? And when Nick and I met, he explained that frustration to me. I looked at his experience, and because of Nick's experience, I was able to offer him 10% down on the purchase price, which is obviously different than.
And to clarify for the group, so at what point, how many transactions in the last trailing 12 months do you have to be at to qualify for that next level of financing?
For us, it's 10 in the last 24 months, and we're going off the sale date, or the date.
Let's say I did less, right? I'm really ramping up this year, and I get 5 or 6 projects like Nick and Krista in the last 12 months. That's definitely a good sign for the lender, right?
Totally.
Okay.
And then maybe we do 10% of cost or
Okay.
90% of cost instead.
Okay.
Which is, depending on the level of rehab, it might be like 88% of purchase. It's not a tremendous difference.
Sure.
So you said originally you thought you were going to spend 50 grand. You spent 70.
Yep.
Did you come out of pocket 20, or did you already plan for that in your budget?
Great question.
I came out of pocket on this one because, like most hard, money lenders, they'll charge you the origination fees. So that's another thing I learned actually, which we're doing completely different on our next flip. Instead of me trying to under budget it so I don't pay a couple $100 in fees, I've actually been going above what I think we're going to need.
Awesome.
Just so I have a buffer, and it's only $100, $150,
Sure.
for an extra 20 grand,
Sure.
25 grand. And
Absolutely.
it's better to not come out of pocket and just
Absolutely.
have that line. So yeah, that was another little thing I did wrong on this one.
I think another thing is to find a lender that you're not paying interest on your construction budget until you draw the funds.
Yep.
Right, so you want non-Dutch interest.
Yep.
Because then you could take 100 grand and you pay that 1% on that, but
Yep.
you know, like you said, it's 500 bucks.
Yeah, that's $1,000
versus
on
having
100
extra.
grand. Yeah.
Right.
And then you could pull that 30 grand if you don't use it on this project. You could also roll it into another one. Like,
Yeah.
you know, most
Exactly.
lenders not really focused on that. Just means so like the $70,000 rehab budget. Some lenders they're going to start charging you interest on that 70 grand as soon as you close. Where non-Dutch means you're not. If you don't touch the budget, you don't pay any interest on the 70 grand.
If you have an extensive rehab budget, you probably want to look into non-Dutch, because the more extensive the rehab budget is, the longer the project will likely take. So thinking about non-Dutch financing is smart. If you're going to do permits, right? If you're doing a fully permitted project and you know you're going to be in permits for 12 weeks, definitely smart, right? Because then you're not paying for a quarter of the year's annual interest on your total rehab budget, because you're not taking anything out until those permits are ready and you're shovel ready.
I do have a business partner, Henry Castillo. I think he was at the last meeting. He owns HAC Construction. So he manages the crews day to day. I'm more the finance, we're the real estate side of it. He basically will take a contractor or a team he thinks is going to be a good fit, and we'll walk the property before we buy it, or before it closes, we'll say.
Okay.
And he will get a couple different bids, and then obviously whoever wins the bid, that we decide on, they'll start construction. One thing I did learn from a management perspective on this one, we had a little bit of I wouldn't say a nightmare, but a snafu.
Okay.
To make it go this fast, I said, why don't we just have one crew to the inside and one crew to the outside? I thought that would be just common sense. And it went sideways really quick.
Sure.
The people on the outside were stepping on the toes of the guys on the inside, and the inside guys were stepping on the toes of the guys on the outside. I had multiple phone calls about one team was quitting, and that was definitely my area of inexperience.
Sure.
Because
Just a lot of emotions.
yes, a lot of emotions. And outside was such a large project that we thought it would make sense to just do them both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But the management did prove pretty hard on that one.
So the way that you're contracting, it's kind of like a day labor rate or a weekly rate for the labor. And the
Yes.
craftsmen that you're using, they're kind of jack of all trades.
Yes.
Right? They can do carpentry, they can do tile,
Yeah.
they can do cabinetry, right? All of it. They can
Yeah.
plumbing, the whole 9 yards. Okay.
Yeah.
So they charge you a weekly amount or a daily amount?
Well, they will actually give us a bid on the whole contract, because out of that $50,000 budget, I think only $25,000 of it originally was labor.
Okay.
So then if they say it's going to be 2 months, we'll say, just to make it easy, then I
Sure.
would divide that 25,000 by, oh gosh, I'm going to have to
Call
do
it 8
math.
weeks, right?
Yeah, 8 weeks. Okay, we're paying you X amount per week.
Okay.
As long as you're on track. And
Okay.
obviously if they finish sooner, then
Sure.
it is. But we've learned that there has to be some sort of accountability. And if we give them 50% deposit on day one,
Yeah.
that's not
Exactly.
good.
So this is really good for the group. A lot of the flippers that we see that scale, they're doing it this same exact way. They have a crew or multiple crews that are really good at many things in the project, and they're paying a weekly rate every Friday, and $3,000 seems to be about the going rate. I think you said 3,000, Mike, was the math. That seems to be about the going rate. Now, if you find a crew like that, that's gold. It's not easy to find a crew that can actually execute on all the different areas of the project with high quality work. So, kudos to Nick and Krista and Henry for finding a team like that. But if you're looking to scale at a high level, I think that's something to really consider is, man, I should really be looking for crews where I can pay what really is a day labor rate, right? Because if you start contracting on various components of the project, well, you're typically working with a business person, maybe a salesperson, and there's a bigger margin for that contracted item, right? They're capturing a profit margin on that item. Whereas if you're working with a labor crew, you can kind of control the flow of how the project goes. So Nick and Krista mentioned they come Tuesdays and Fridays, or at least twice a week for pop-ins.
That's
Yep.
Yeah, ideally, yes.
Yep. So we preach what you inspect, people respect, right? So I think that's great. Twice a week is fantastic. If you can do it more, right? If this is your full-time gig, daily pop-ins, wear some construction boots, look like this is what you do, I think that goes a long way with your crews, right?
Yeah. Henry, my business partner, he's in control of it. He will work with the crews to figure out what they need. And a lot of times we'll just place the order online for pickup. And if it's something small, then obviously Henry will just run to the store and, kind of facilitate that and help it. We have things delivered, flooring, things like that. We would have delivered. Windows were all pick up from Lowe's, I believe.
Basically, you have teams on site here for 8 straight weeks, right? So if you're having materials delivered, it's kind of like a text message to the team, hey, can you bring the materials inside? That kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay.
I want to speak about like your relationship with Henry. Is it like a JV
Great question.
deal, or are you kind of?
We've agreed kind of to split the profits down the middle. I handle the financing and the real estate, like, just the appraisals, things like that. The construction's a huge part of it, honestly. And having that run smooth, I'm never going to be a construction manager. That's just, I don't have those skill sets, and Henry's bilingual, obviously, and that helps him a ton. And then it's just, we need somebody boots on the ground, especially if we kind of go between states sometimes. It's worth it for me, the peace of mind and having people just, have it handled, basically.
So you give away 50% of the equity, or I should say, the agreement is a real partnership, right? But you feel like you could do double or triple the amount of projects because you have somebody like Henry on your side, right?
Yeah, and to be clear, by splitting it, as of now, every project we've done, we're actually just keeping the profits in a business high-yield savings account.
Okay.
Because ideally, we want to ramp that capital up so we can either finance less and save a little bit, or we can just run more projects at the same time.
Okay.
So we're not splitting up the profit at all yet. I don't know if I guess we ever talk about that, but.
Sure.
I've been
it's
reinvesting.
One pot, basically, right?
Yes, I've been reinvesting. We both have.
Yeah. So I love that. The story is, of course, all of us want to be in the business full time, or many of us want to, but you can also do this business while you have other income streams, right? And if you have other income streams, it empowers you to grow faster in your wealth base in the actual business, because you don't need to take money out of your deals or out of the profit from your deals just to pay for your lifestyle. So I think it's really cool that you guys are both in a position where you can just funnel all of the profit from the business into the growth of the business, right?
Yeah, and that's because I still do the realtor job, and obviously Krista does as well. She sells all these flips.
Sure.
But I still have clients, in Michigan that I represent normally.
Sure.
Obviously, I think you have to know what's going on, or else, like the last event we went through with you, if you don't know what's going on, you can get behind, you can get lost, you can get over budget, you could get taken advantage of, anything like that. And then also, personally, I like having a partner with skin in the game, somebody to help me with managing a crew that I really am not quite qualified to manage.
All right.
One of the crew that we got to do the inside of this one wasn't big on painting, so they referred us a painter that they have even worked with before, a young guy.
Okay.
And we paid him, luckily it was not much. We gave him like $1,000 down payment, and I think he quit on day one. And literally didn't do anything. And then the crew and him got into a fight, and he walked out. And
that was the end of it.
I think he had basically just started cutting in like one room.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go after a guy for $1,000 and
exactly right.
ruin my
and
week.
He knows it too, right?
Yeah,
and he knows it. Exactly right.
So after that, I was like, all right, how much is the job? Let's just pay them when they finish up, or pay them in steps. So that wasn't a big loss, thankfully. Henry, on another job, actually had a contractor that the client had paid, almost $10,000.
Wow.
That walked away halfway through the job.
Right.
So we've just learned. It is what it is, but you got to protect yourself.
After the storms, all these yard demo companies, landscaping companies, they were making a mint, right? So it was hard to find somebody on one of our projects to do yard demo that we needed. So this gentleman required down payment for the yard demo, 50%. I felt like I had no choice because they were just hard to find. I gave him the 50%. That was in the storms. They still have not yet completed the yard demo. We're in February.
Because it would have been actually cheaper for you just to wait probably until the good contractors were available.
If it would have been done, it would have been cheaper.
I say twice a week, and that is either us or Henry. It's generally, to be honest, it's generally Henry because I trust him. You know what I mean? I'll call it an owner of the business I want here, whether it's Krista. She's stopped in before. I just think we need to have a presence of somebody who is paying the bills to, like you said, inspect. It's really important.
That's right.
So this is probably like our sixth one that we've done this year. So all of the teams we had actually used before in a different project, sometimes depending on how busy they are or not busy they are, like their prices can sometimes be wildly different from project to project. So we try to catch somebody who might want the work more, who comes in at a better price. But they're all relatively like the same skill level.
I think just having a team, a common team that you've already worked with before, even if their price at some point is a little more surge pricing than another time, the fact that you have that working relationship, it'll keep you from paying carrying costs.
Once we got into it, realizing that we bought it pretty high, and originally Krista's ARV on this was 415. So when you guys see it 67% of ARV, it was actually closer to 70 and change.
Sure.
And obviously some unforeseen things like the decking, some stuff that we didn't notice from afar. I thought it would be a quick flip. It still was quick, but it was extensive.
Sure.
When this was finished, we finished October, and at that time, it survived 2 hurricanes, but the garage roof was kind of ruined, so we had to deal with that. And then it was literally the week of the election and going into holidays where I wanted to list, but after running comps, I was like, hey, I really don't think, I was pulling like 385, maybe 400K on the high side, and for what we've done and put into it, we were like, okay, maybe this isn't the right time. So after holidays, after everything with the election, we're like, let's just make some money on the rental side, hold it for a little bit. With the new year, after everything and holidays and stuff, I was like, okay, I really think this is the right time to list. So I listed it on a Tuesday and didn't allow showings until Friday, and I listed it at $435. I thought that was a pretty fair price and kind of hit it right off the bat. Like, we were slammed with private showings, I think 6 or 7 private showings within the first weekend, multiple offers. It was sold in less than 6 days. So it was sold for over asking too. So I think just waiting.
Yeah, let's go.
I think just waiting and having it staged. You talk about staging all the time. I think that's super important if you want to get a decent price for the home. So that kind of went in our favor a little bit, holding it for a little bit. So that was exciting.
Awesome.
A couple of key real estate tips there, just to make sure that everybody heard it, is you should definitely budget for staging just as part of your renovation cost. Even the nicest houses, even new construction, when buyers are walking through those houses, they're questioning what are these different areas for? Where would my furniture go, right? A good quality staging company, Frank is top notch in the area. John's fiance owns a really beautiful staging company. They make it feel like a home. That's what's going to get you kind of that higher price point, because people fall in love with the actual staging and not the actual house typically.
Right.
The other thing that she touched on was not going live at the holidays. A lot of times, investors wrap up, you just want this property out of your life. Timing, your entry, you only get one chance to make a first impression on the market. Your goal should always be kind of optimizing your buyer pool, right? And so if it's a season where people are doing a lot of traveling or they're spending a lot of money, right? Like the holidays, people are visiting family and they're also flat broke because they're spending all their money on other things, right? And so kind of just waiting. If they had listed and elections also do throw things off for whatever reason. If they had kind of listed during that time, you probably would have ended up around 400. Just waiting, right, and paying, whatever, $2,000, $3,000 in holding costs for an extra month is going to get you, an extra $60,000 on the purchase price, right? So timing on the market is important.
And even during that time, there was a lot of houses sitting, but we were able to, when I was running comps, when I went to list it, I was seeing comps finally sell, and those numbers hopefully helped us. We'll see today with the appraisal, but it was just timing was everything on this one, and I think we just found the right buyer.
Yeah.
Just waiting.
That was us thinking outside of the box. So my friend James and his girlfriend, I'm from Michigan, he does the snowbird thing every year, and I've actually rented him a place for the last 2 years, and this one just kind of worked out where he's like, I'm ready to come down in November and rent month to month. So I'm getting actually with utilities about $3,600, and our holding costs on this are about $2,800. So we tried to think outside the box a little bit, honestly.
A couple things to think about. So one, we heard seasonality matters, right? So I think that's important, right? That holiday season, seasonality matters, right? You can wait and it can work out for you. I think the other thing too is this is a roller coaster ride. In October, they just had the storms and they thought they were going to lose 20 grand on their flip. Imagine how they felt, right? And they were nimble, they were flexible, they got crafty, they rented it out, they made cash flow while they rented it out, and now they're selling it for $30,000 in profit, have a beautiful project for their portfolio, which gives them favor with lenders, which gives them favor in the community. They learned a ton of lessons, and now they're moving on to the next deal, buying it more profitably, right? So, be prepared for the roller coaster ride. I think all of us, I've been through that already in some form or fashion in the real estate space. But
if you can do things without desperation and emotion in this space, you're going to succeed. If you freak out at any point, it should always be kind of like a fluid process. What's my next move? What's my next step? How do I keep things moving forward? How do I minimize my loss? How do I maximize my profit? Like, you're constantly having, and that is what makes it a roller coaster ride. But had they freaked out, or had they felt like, you know what, we're going to lose money on this no matter what, let's just get it up, let's just cut our losses and sell it, they would be, we're saying $20,000 loss, but it's really a $50,000 loss, because they also lost out on the 30 grand that they're going to make on the property, right? That opportunity cost of making money. And not just that, but also the amount of time that they put in the house, the effort, right? Their capital not being put to use on a better property. So you never want to act out of like negative emotion or desperation, right? There's typically some sort of creative solution to figure it out, as long as you're, you know, buying as smart as possible.
Buying it right is really the name of the game. Make sure you guys are being really prudent with buying your deals with meat on the bone.
We made a couple decisions, I think, that ended up being cheaper than we thought too. We removed 2 walls, opened it up, and it ended up probably costing us like $1,200 extra in labor, which I had budgeted more for. Flooring on the inside saved us, you know, probably 5 to 10 grand, because we would have done like a natural looking hardwood in there to keep with the appearances. Despite the cost, I think this deck turned out amazing. And when you're up here, it gives the charm that we were looking for. People expect a wide open porch, like, you know, across the street.
Location, elevation. Right?
Start with your numbers for sure. I bought this a little emotionally because I like Seminole Heights, and I saw the potential, you know, of what this could look like, and I wanted it, to be honest.
We're learning, right? I mean, in real estate, you're always learning. I think taking from what we did in 2024, we bought properties high. Now in 2025, we have 2 properties underway in St. Pete, and we negotiated with those wholesalers and got even more money off. So we're buying better. We're buying way better. We're learning from what we did last year. And then we have some like do nots for us. Like, based on experience, we won't buy any houses on main roads anymore, just because we've gotten screwed from a previous property. A lot of buyers didn't even go into the house because they didn't want to be on the main road. We won't do flood zones anymore. I mean, maybe these past 2 hurricanes were the one out of 100 years, but we're from Michigan. We didn't know anything about hurricanes. It's a lot of risk in flood zones. If you're willing to take it on, kudos to you. We personally won't. And then condos. We are condo owners ourselves. We've been screwed by HOAs, and I just think with the HOA amounts,
flips. One we did good on, the other one
not so good.
the HOA doubled halfway through the project.
So yeah, that was a disaster. And negotiating. I feel like in real estate you could always negotiate. So
Absolutely.
We're learning.
We only get better if we grow as a group. Thank you guys so much. A big round of applause to Nick and Krista on this awesome project. Thank you guys. Well, maybe 10 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes of networking, then we gotta get out of here.